So another week, another situation where the round table is getting together, and we have a lot to talk about. I don't know why it won't let me scroll down so I can add in. Let's see, getting Jason situated. Okay, hopefully that gets it done. Joseph, thank you for being in here. Jason, getting situated from the car. My goodness, in the middle of nowhere looking like out there. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, we are here. Got a lot to talk about. Jake, how you doing tonight?
Dude, I'm good, man. It's good to be
Welcome
back.
back.
All right, sounds good, Jason. But no, it's good to be back, man. It's good to jump in and chat some football. Obviously, I was on this morning, which was a good time with good old Jason there himself, who's driving. Be safe, Jason, while you're driving the car. Be safe. I'm going to be honest. As a police officer, that's super unsafe. Okay. Ex-police officer, I should say. But man, it was a good time this morning over at Hall of Fame College Football with Jason, the coach. We talked a lot over there this morning, and then from there, man, it's been good. It's nice to start up the week on a Monday and get after it. And there's some good news coming out, man. I love it. Like from the recruiting aspect and all sorts of new rankings dropping from the PFF and college football statistics and you name it, from who's going to do what. So I'm interested. But
Yeah, 100%. I think Jason said he's going to be back, so I don't know if we have him right now. PG, how you doing?
I'm doing good. So I just need Oklahoma baseball to pull out a win tonight so we can go to Tallahassee.
Okay. We got Benjamin in here saying, what's up? C Bama in here. Once again, Joseph, thank you for being in here. Well, we're going to kick this off with C Bama saying roll tide. What better way for us to begin than Bama pushing for big wins? And PG, it's interesting. I want to start with you here because a while ago, and Brandon Wilkins, thank you very much for the $4.99 saying Russell will wear crimson. Flip season comes early. Let's get his wide receiver, and we need Haywood. Dude. Fire this panel up. Hey, Haywood's going to be a tough battle, Brandon. We'll talk about that. Oklahoma has done a great job recruiting
PG
him.
Loves it.
Well, PG is, a great insight into recruiting. So that's why I really want to start with him. But one of the reasons also, PG, I wanted to start with you is back in, it was either February or March. You sent me an interesting text message talking about things that you were hearing in the background, saying that Kalen DeBoer is doing Alabama things without Nick Saban and that they were making up ground quick for a lot of top prospects. And one of the things that made me laugh that I've talked about is you saying, I really hope he drops the ball at Alabama. That way it's not a continuation of what we just saw. Talk to me, PG, about, we'll start with Haywood, right? Because on Friday we made a video breaking down who I believe is a two-team race between Oklahoma, Bama. What a recruiting battle to watch. Bill Bedenbaugh versus Coach Cap. PG, start me off on Haywood. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's sounded like Alabama has really came into this recruitment, and I think probably the leader. OU fans are still holding out hope that Haywood somehow ends up here, but I mean, Haywood hasn't been to Oklahoma since September, so kind of what I've been telling Oklahoma fans is y'all got to get over it. Until he shows back up on campus, I don't believe it. Now, Oklahoma's got Fasusi, I think, in the bag. So I don't necessarily think you've got to go balls to the wall for Haywood, but Haywood's an interesting prospect because for Oklahoma, they've done really good in the Denton Ryan area. You got Billy Bowman from there. You got Caleb Hicks, but man, Alabama, it doesn't seem like Oklahoma, even with Nick Saban leaving, can get them off their backs because you guys remember, you guys got Luke Metz too, who was a linebacker that Oklahoma offered him. It seemed like Oklahoma was the front runner there, and then all of a sudden LSU, Bama, all these schools all of a sudden came into this recruitment, and it became an Alabama commitment. So, when I texted you, I meant it. I don't know what Alabama is selling down there with DeBoer. He hasn't even played a game yet, and yet somehow they're in for elite prospects. So, Haywood, though, if Alabama wins this, I think this stacks onto what DeBoer did at Washington with putting out an elite offensive line. You obviously Caden Proctor coming back, and if they go out there and they do something similar this season, I think you're going to see a lot of five-star offensive linemen seriously look at DeBoer's group at Alabama and say, you know what? I think we can go out there and still compete at Bama.
And before, Jake, I pass it to you, Brandon. doubling up that donation with another $4.99, saying once we beat Boomer and Norman, Haywood will be at Bama. Hey, Brandon, don't overlook that game, man. I'm telling you, that's going to be a really tough game. I have not made it a secret that I think Oklahoma is going to take a step up in year 3. They took a step up in year 1 with Brent Venables, and you can give me the record. But if we're really getting into a nuanced conversation, Lincoln gutted that team. Brent Venables takes it over, has to do a total philosophy change, puts them in a position to be successful in recruiting, successful in the transfer portal. They continue to do both of those. You see constant improvement from that defense. They return top 10 talent in terms of returning production. They are top 10 in the nation on that defense. It's going to be a really fun game. Don't overlook it. Oklahoma is going to be very good, though they don't return near as much on offense. PG, I've said this to you before. There is so much talent in that offensive room. My biggest question, for lack of a better word, offensive line. And I say this every time, and I'm sorry to sound like a broken record. If I question OU's offensive line, that question, until I'm given reason to think otherwise, that question has an answer. And the answer is Bill Bedenbaugh. He does it year after year after year. And until I'm given reason to think, hey, he's not going to do it this year, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Do not sleep on that game. But thank you very much for the donation, Brandon. That is going to be an awesome game. And the last thing I'll say, Jake, before I pass it to you, is that I think both Texas and Oklahoma have done a really good job since Steve Sarkisian has been at Texas and it was announced that they were going to the SEC. And certainly since Brent Venables, PG, correct me if I'm wrong, we pretty much well knew when Brent Venables stepped on campus that within the next, it wasn't going to take long.
It wasn't going to take long. And the interesting thing is, because you talked about Lincoln gutting the roster, if Britton Venables wouldn't have had the integrity that he had, Clemson would have been gutted because Ty, I don't know if you know, but there were multiple like 5-star dudes at Clemson that were willing to hop in the portal and come to Oklahoma that Britton Venables did not take. So, I mean, it wasn't going to take long, but it would have been a lot faster if he would have taken those Clemson kids.
Now, Jake, before I get Chris, you do realize that they're ahead of Auburn right now, right? With less prospects.
Chris's comments don't even make sense.
I think this dude needs to be put in timeout.
I know, dude. Like, what? He's not going to win top 15 recruiting for the rest of your lifetime? Yeah, man, you're like the worst troll. You know what I mean? Coming here with good stuff.
I bet Oklahoma puts out I bet their offensive line is top 15 this year in the country.
Top 15? I
like that.
If it wasn't for Bedenbaugh, PG, I would push back on that. But once again, until I'm given reason not to believe in Bedenbaugh, it's like, okay, do I think that y'all will have a Joe Moore-a-winning offensive line? Probably not, just because there are other offensive lines that return a lot more production, right? But do I think that y'all are going to have a bad offensive line? No. Why would I whenever Bedenbaugh does what he does? Jake, I'm going to pass it to you. Ty Haywood at Bama this weekend, but he wasn't alone.
No.
There's something that is getting me fired up, and that is one of the players that I want the most in this recruiting class, Kalen Russell, has been fogged to flip from SMU to Bama. This dude's a baller, currently sitting as a top 40 prospect in all of high school football. Watch out. He may just end up as a 5-star. If I have the numbers right in front of me, here we go. Jake, here's something for you to work with. Last season at Duncanville, playing 6A high school football in Texas, went 14-1 with a 72.1% completion percentage, 3,483 yards, 38 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, just shy of 400 yards on the ground, and averaged just shy of 6 yards per carry. Talk to me about Kalen Russell.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, right? Like that he is very, very high on SMU. If there is a few places that we could even consider for a flip for him, Alabama was one of them. We'll see what happens with his next 2 official visits. I know one of them is to Oregon, and I think if you guys help me with the next one,
Oregon, Florida.
That's right, and it's Florida. Florida, I don't know, especially with like Legway, I don't know if Florida's a real contender, obviously, for him. Oregon too, with getting Dante Moore. I mean, he's going to be there for a minute, right? So I don't see those two being real serious contenders for a flip. Don't get me wrong, Oregon can pull out a lot of bells and whistles, and Florida does obviously have something going on because there seems to be a lot of recruits who are still very, very active in the recruiting process, and high-end recruits who are very interested in Florida and still are feeling that Florida vibe. Now, it is Florida. It's been talked about before. There is a vibe to Florida no matter what. But if we really look down the two schools when it comes down to it's SMU or Alabama. Alabama made their case this last weekend, and they did a very, very good job. They pulled out everything. I mean, and you heard it from all the recruits who went, really, if you look through and look at everybody who was there, every single one of them said, man, the bar was set really, really high from a recruiting trip and official visit aspect, which is always interesting from official visits, right? Because you can go to unofficial visits and you can go experience these unofficial visits and you think you see a lot, but then you go to an official visit and you don't know how much more you can see, especially when you've been there before. Now, I know Keelan's had some experience a little bit going to campus and talking a little bit with the coaches, but for some of the other guys, we talk about like Ty Haywood, who's already this is his, second time or third time back?
First time with this staff, I'm not mistaken.
First or second time, maybe even talking with them too, and really getting a chance to get to know them. But to go there and see and feel the vibes going on at Alabama, there obviously, and PG, you kind of said it, there's some sort of magic going on there that guys are like, whoa, Alabama with the script A will always have the reputation, right? I think there's schools you can look through history and say, man, these schools are these power schools. Oklahoma's one of them. All right, Texas is one of them. Notre Dame will always be a school like that, right? But when you look at what Alabama's doing right now, as far as really locking in these recruits, and especially you go back to Kalen Russell, I mean, they identified him. I mean, he goes through his process, right? SMU is where he's at. He goes after SMU. They give him a lot of love because they identified him early. They identify him, Sheridan and DeBoer, and they realize that's the quarterback we want. I think they see a Michael Penix 2.0 in him. I'm going to be honest. That's probably what they're looking at with his style. Maybe even a little more athletic, a little more a little more long, a little more touch and release. They just see it all, these little things, and they're going, oh, wait a minute, that's that guy. We can do something with that. And that's someone we want to really lock in. And even from the stuff we saw with his mom that had put out there, that Bama pulled out the stops for him, man. And it sounds like we have a really good chance. Steve, Wilfong, he does an amazing job. It sounds like majority of the time, he's very accurate in his predictions. So we'll see where this goes. I think, SMU, I know he's camping, Russ is camping over at SMU. That relationship's not going to stop, and he's built a really strong relationship there. So it's a matter of how much they keep going after him throughout this process and really, really making sure he feels that priority. I think an interesting thing that I did notice is some comments about playing early is something he's really interested in. So that might be it might, just because you go to SMU, man, they could really put that, and they've told them we're going to build that program around you. So this is going to be a unique recruiting battle between SMU and Bama, at least going into December. And the same thing will go with, we go back with Oklahoma and Alabama and Ty Haywood. I think when it comes down to it, there's no two other schools that are going to be as competitive as those two when it comes down to this lock. But PG obviously had a really good insight on that, and I do think, man, there's a lot to be said for some of the comments he made, and you can look into that. There's maybe a lean towards Bama. So.
Well, you want to know what really intrigues me, though, and this might be in Alabama's benefit, but Oklahoma is getting all of these 5-star, or Lamont Rogers isn't a 5-star anymore, but these elite offensive linemen on campus right at the same week. I mean, Fasusi, Ty Haywood, they're going to be there 14th to the 16th.
That's
Rogers
right.
is coming in 18th to the 20th. You're going to get Babaloa the week after. But I don't feel like Babaloa is that recruitment where, like, if you land Fasusi, you don't get Babaloa. I think Oklahoma is going to kind of explain to one of these guys, listen, the opportunity's here. One of you's got to grab it. And Fasusi or Haywood, I think you're going to see one of them drop to Oklahoma that week. And if Alabama has made the push that we've heard, I don't think he's going to be at Oklahoma. So
no, I mean, you know, it's funny too, is Georgia did the same thing with you guys saw their opening visit weekend. They brought in like a whole bunch of guys kind of within those same position groups, right? With Sanders, they did it with, I forget his name, Addison, I believe. And there's another one there, but you look at what Georgia did too. You almost wonder if is it a negative or a positive? I don't necessarily see it as a negative. I wouldn't have thought that way. Granted, when I was being recruited, I was the only DB at that time that signed, right? So it was a little different, but I could see if you have another guy in your position that you're maybe going to compete with, how does that work with the mindset and the thought process as you're trying to figure out where's my best option to play, right?
Yeah, now and Oklahoma's going to play the NIL game with these recruits, and they have more money that has opened up with Ogumoro going to Tennessee. So, I mean, the bag's only there for one of those guys.
Yeah.
And then I think they'll look at Babaloa and assess that one as they feel. But the bag's open for one of them, and they got to go out there and grab it. And I think Alabama's in a good position to I think with where Oklahoma's at with Fasusi to say, hey, yeah, we're going to grab Haywood.
Yeah.
Now, Jason J., before I pass this to y'all, I wanted to answer this question right here from Keaton. Keaton, good to see you. He says, for Bama fans, what is the absolute floor for 24? Like the wheels fall off, it's not just the 4. He follows it up with saying, in my opinion, 7-5 could be a legit reality. I would never bet on it by any means, though. Looking at the schedule, I'd say 8-4. Because, and we can go through it here in a bit, Georgia's a tough game. Right, like all due respect to Georgia, Kirby Smart, and the Dogs, they are what they are. You know what I mean? Like let's call a spade a spade. I look at Tennessee's interesting, but the thing with that Heupel, veer and shoot, like it all depends on how good Nico is going to be. I think Nico is going to be fantastic. Do you have the wide receivers to stretch it? Is your defense going to be as good? That's the question there. We look at Missouri. Missouri's a tough game, but how do you replace Cody Schrader? I thought that they should have done a full court press for Dylan Edwards. They didn't end up getting him. He's at Kansas State. Missouri's a question, but they did lose their 2 best defensive backs, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So they have some things to replace over there. LSU came in with the number 120 defense in the nation last year. They didn't get big wins on the defensive line. Offensively, they lost the Heisman Trophy winner. They lost 2 of the top wide receivers in the nation. They didn't have a rushing game last year. Jaden Daniels was the rushing game, and John Emery is in the transfer portal. LSU is a major question mark to me, right? Like, I don't see them taking a jump from 120th defense, something around there, to a top 25 defense. Oklahoma is going to be a tough game. I grant you that one. Oklahoma is going to be a tough game. Their defense returns some of the top amount of talent in the nation. I think they're number 8 in returning production on defense. Some interesting things there. If Alabama's defensive line comes in and is the defensive line I think they could be, that's going to be a fantastic matchup because I think Alabama's defensive line will be deeper this year than we've seen in 3 to 4 to 5 years, maybe. I mean, when you just look at the names on this rotation, it's going to be deep. They have to replace a pass rusher, though. But remember, I've often said I think that's the most loaded room in all of college football. Keon Keeley, 5-star. Yanze Pierre, 5-star. Noah Carter, top 100 player. Ja'Shawn Ross is in there. I mean, you have Quay Russaw, 5-star. You have so many 5-stars waiting to rush the edge right there. So I'd say 8-4. He says Wisconsin could be sneaky. They don't have a quarterback right now, man. Like Tyler Van Dyke is not taking the reins there. Evers, if I'm not mistaken, is back in the transfer portal.
He's at UConn.
No, Evers is at UConn.
Gotcha. So if they had a quarterback, I would agree with you because I think they have a hell of a coach. I really do.
They're still a year away, I think.
Yeah. Jason, want to pass it to you. We were talking earlier about Ty Haywood. What's your thoughts there?
I don't know that I'm so quick to say no with him, but I also understand what PG's saying and think that I think it's probably one of the others got to get it. You got to remember that they already have Ryan Foji in the mix. This is a guy that's shooting up the recruiting ranks himself. Looks like a 5-star to me. He's definitely in the top 100. I would think that you probably got room for one more guy. So I think that, you're going to have that week. Whoever jumps on the bag first is probably going to get it. And from just, I've been telling people watching PG show whenever he had Pasusi on, it sounded to me like he was closer to picking Oklahoma than what it's starting to sound like with Ty Haywood. Although I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility either, because they get the last shot at him in comparison to everybody, in comparison to Alabama. And I do think it's a 2-horse race. But, and it just sounds to me like that's kind of where they are. I don't think you could really go wrong with either one of them. So, I feel good about their chances with both of them. And again, I still think that the guys that they have recruited and already having Foji in the mix, you got to feel pretty good about it if you're OU.
Yeah, Jay, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm similar mindset. I feel like with Haywood, it's an Oklahoma-Alabama battle at that point. It's just a battle of offensive line coaches, 2 Joe Moore Award-winning coaches. So it's gonna really come down to where does he? To me, feels like it's gonna come down to where he thinks he's gonna be able to play and get an opportunity to play a little bit faster, possibly. He hasn't really shown much of his cards besides saying that he enjoys both places, right? A lot of them give the canned answer. So it's nothing that's really tipped me off to think that it's just a big shift either direction, but it's going to probably be a battle all the way to the end because he visits us on the 14th. And that's basically so we got 3 offensive linemen visiting that weekend. So it's going to be tough. And kind of Jason mentioned, Foje is jumping up the boards. He'll be able to go either interior or tackle. He can play on either spot, and mainly that versatility is what really attracted him to Beaton Bow and as a 3-star, right? And then now he's shooting in the top 100 in the country, right? So we all know Beaton Bow does a really good job of finding those players that are kind of like diamonds in the rough that nobody else truly recognizes. They have particular things that he looks for. And so for me, I think I still feel like it's one of those that's going to be very hard to call. I think both teams, if I would give it a 50-50 just to be safe. And I'd probably pull that there.
Now, yeah. Jay, you're obviously a lot higher on Ty Haywood than I am. Like, he hasn't been to Oklahoma since September. So,
and he has called Alabama his dream school multiple times.
Yeah. So, why? Like, yeah. I genuinely want to hear why a 50-50 shot, because I'm actually curious to hear this.
A lot of the insiders that I've been reading up on and talking about him have talked about how he's talked very highly about Oklahoma. Now, granted, we've got to get him back on campus, and to be honest, with the way that he's done it feels like with him, similar to some of the other players when it comes to visits, he's been here enough times where he's like, I want to go see what's going on everywhere else, and then I'm gonna come back and kind of make a decision. If I make my world tour and I come back here and it really does feel like home, then boom. But Ty, as you mentioned, he did mention that this is his dream school or whatnot. I'm wondering how much weight is that still gonna play once he actually finalizes his visits, right? Like you said, PG, he hasn't been here since September, but we know that he was raving about Oklahoma at that point. But he needs to see everything else. So once he comes back, and if I do hear the dream portion of it then, because he's, like I said, he's raved about Oklahoma just as much as he's raved about Bama. He gave Bama the dream portion, but we've also seen people say that certain schools are the dream school and then go elsewhere. It's not unforeseen, but at the same time, I think that's what it is. It's a lot of folks have talked about how him raving about Oklahoma, but at the same time wanting to go see everything else. And
plus
once he comes back,
right? All the predictions for him to OU up until this point, right? You've had a
a lot of those predictions came like beginning of this year, and he, like you say, he ain't been here since September.
Well, and if I may say,
during this year,
he hadn't ever talked to the new Bama staff until this weekend.
Right. And so that's where I'm
this
thinking.
Is where it's going.
That's where I can see the
50-50
coming
line.
in.
Yeah, I think this is one that
I
goes
can
to
totally
the finish
see that.
line, right? This is
I
going
can
to
totally
be
see that. Now, I haven't seen any indications of him saying that he wanted to shut it down before his senior year.
I haven't seen that either.
The kids say that. Usually the kids will up front say, yeah, I want this done right before I start school, in the summer, blah, blah, blah. The parents will say it. I haven't seen any indications on that. So because of that, for me, I see it as a 50-50 with, as Jason mentioned, all those predictions came and he hadn't been here in like 2 or 3 months at that point, at least. So, yeah, and he's just now meeting the new staff at Bama. Like I said, 2 Joe Moore award-winning offensive line coaches that have proven track records of sending guys to the league. That's where I think they'll be able to battle 50-50 up until he makes those final set of visits.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, right? And if he continues taking visits after the officials, hopefully Bama can get him on campus for a game. That would be ideal, right? I always love when the official visits come in the fall, but I know that some staffs would like them to get done in the summer portions. That way everything is more focused in the fall. So this is going to be a fantastic recruiting battle. Jay, I don't know if you've seen Kalen Russell, quarterback who's committed to SMU, plays for Duncanville, who has been flying up the recruiting boards. And if it's any indication, I think he's going to finish up as a 5-star, because not long ago he was like at 100 and now he's at 38 in the nation. Whereas, he's number 38 nationally right now. And that's before his senior year. He is 29-1. Yeah, he's 29-1 in Texas 6A high school football. Wilt Fong put in a prediction for him to flip to Alabama. What's your thoughts on that with this new staff, Jay?
Hey, man, I've said this about DeBoer coming in from the beginning, and he's been proven to go places and win, right? The question we've always had about DeBoer is, can he do it once he has to recruit all of his own guys? In which we won't know that for 3 years. So to me, walking into a program that has always done well historically in recruiting, I think he's going to be fine with that. And so I think adding in with Kalen, I think Keelan's going to see him come in, see some calmness in the storm of the Bama world. Like, let's be truthful. He's going into a lot of pressure. Like, there's a lot of pressure of going to coach at Alabama, just naturally, right? That usually breaks coaches. And DeBoer walks in, does solid work. I can see Kalen going ahead and saying, yep, that's the system I'm going to play in, especially because he'll get to see the reform of a Jalen Milroe, right? We know he has some flaws, but at the same time, he's an amazing athlete. DeBoer fixes those little nuances that need to be developed in him to get him to the next level. Oh, my God. There's no reason why Kalen Russell wouldn't look at that and be like, "Yep, that's where I want to be. That's me. I'm there. That's me." And so I could totally see the flip. I mean, I like Lashley down there at SMU, but yeah, that staff there at Bama's way better for what Russell's going to want to do. So I can totally see it flipping. I'm kind of surprised with the way he's been ascending. That's the word, ascending. I'm actually surprised he's even still committed to SMU right now. Yes, they're going to the ACC, but they still got some work to do. That death penalty really did damage to them. And it's crazy how that happened in the 80s and it's still reverberating throughout their entire existence. It's wild to me, but that's what happens whenever you when you get that penalty and donors are like, we ain't touching this because we don't know what's going to happen next. They're trying to step back. Now they have this opportunity because SMU got bread, a lot of it.
They do that.
Down the line, I can see it, but today I see Bama definitely stealing him away.
Yeah, and Chris likes your point, Jay, about our resident delusional Auburn fan, says he likes the point about with DeBoer with his own players. Now, this is the double-edged sword to that, Chris, and to some level, Jay. He walked into Washington when they were 4-8, instantly, or I'm sorry, 4-8. 4-8 instantly went.
Yes.
What was it? 11-2 and then 14-1. He's 25. Yeah, he's 25-3. And Penix was
he also brought
guy.
in Michael Penix with him.
But that was his guy. He recruited him in Indiana with Nick Sheridan. Right? So
quarterback is probably the most important piece. You bring in a quarterback like that, totally, it changes things or whatnot, and he has good scheme. We know that. We know he schemes very well. So I mean that's not any true, like I said, shade to DeBoer. It's the holistic piece of a team, right? Of the recruiting aspects with the staff and everybody. He's lost a few people from that Washington staff, and and he's retained the right pieces there at Bama. All you gotta do is just put it together again and show us that he can keep it going. It's not about what he can do today. He's gonna be able to piecemeal it from the portal like he's always done, especially did with Washington and then now here. The question is, what does it look like later? Like you said, it's a double edge. We got to see what it looks like after the fact, when it's really just him and his boys. And the other question is, how many people he gonna lose on staff, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think that was one of the things that was slowly starting to trickle in on Saban was the elite assistants that he always had in place. He was starting to lose a little bit of those people. And then, we always joke about the P. Golding. That was his boy. It just wasn't one of those coaches that worked out, unfortunately. It just wasn't something that turned out to be another Kirby Smart type situation, because Golding just unfortunately was not it on the Saban meter. So, but we'll see what like I said, staffing goes and everything, because that's always the other concern I have with coaches that do very well fast is how many coaches leave.
But see, great point. But what I was going to say, the double-edged sword to that for both Chris and slightly to your point, he now inherits a roster, right? Like if we're wondering what he's going to do with his own guys, if we know he's been successful with others, he inherits a roster that's exponentially more talented than the one he just had at Washington. PFF just put out something. The school with the most 5-stars right now is still Bama with 16 5-stars. Georgia came in at second with 15. It's going to be really interesting to see what he does, right? No doubt about it. And someone asked what Anthony Steele's asking what Alabama's NIL is looking like right now. Actually, and this is the crazy part, better than when Saban retired. Why? Because with Nick Saban, they had the Saban discount.
True fact.
And so they've had to completely start revamping what they're doing from an NIL level, because they were like number 5 or 6 in the SEC in NIL. How do I know that? Someone very close. Go ahead.
I say, and to add to that, Saban has been preaching this since the NIL stuff started to the boosters. He's letting them know, hey, look, and he didn't say this in these exact words, but if you paraphrase kind of and read between the lines, he's basically saying, look, guys, this Saban discount ain't gonna last forever. We need to start upping this bread. Y'all need to start working on this. Anytime that he was kind of pointing out other people doing stuff in NIL, it was always at a booster event around his boosters, right? Whenever we would extract this video and audio of Saban making these comments, and he's crying about NIL. No. He's telling his boosters, hey, guys, if you don't get your stuff together, you're going to have problems in the next couple of years. Get your money up. And it worked, right? It, like you said, NIL for Bama has gone up. It's because they recognize, well, now Saban's gone. They're like, okay, you're right, Nick. We're sorry. We probably should have been doing this a while ago. Let's go ahead and start digging in the piggy banks. And now they got that. Now, with the change of the landscape of college football coming in 2025 and the sharing of revenue and everybody becoming employees in some capacity, or at least contract workers, it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to work, because like, I know that some people in here is going to whine about, players need to pay for their own, school or blah, blah. No, that's going to be a benefit to come to that school. Ain't no school stupid enough to make a player pay for their schooling. They ain't that dumb. Because that's going to be a benefit. Because somebody else is going to walk in and say, it's all about benefits, right? It's a benefit. It's going to be like health insurance. It's going to be that kind of stuff. Look, if one business says they're going to give you $20,000 sign-on bonus, another one says only $5,000 is what they can afford, you're going to probably take and the job with $20,000 is even better as far as setup, and you've got better coworkers, you're going to take the money. You ain't stupid. So that's a benefit that's going to happen. It's just like any other job. This is a competitive industry, way more competitive than anybody else. That's why in the NFL and the NBA, these players go after the more guaranteed money, because they know this league is competitive. So teams, they offer what they can, and the players go after, and the players take it. It's the benefits of the scholarship is going to be with the scholarship itself, quote unquote, the schooling being paid for. The teams are going to use their money just like they do today. Because remember, the schools don't provide it. The athletic departments pay for it. That's the difference. The misconception that a lot of people don't get. It's the athletic department's taking their money and paying the school for it. They're going to make that a benefit. They're not dumb. But anyway, I digress on that. Because of all those changes, I'm really curious to see what things look like NIL-wise, because hopefully we get to the point where NIL is actual NIL and we're actually using their name, image, and likeness and not just using it as a way to funnel money from boosters to kids, in which, I'm going to be honest, I don't mind it. I've always thought that it's just let boosters just pay the kids. Call it a day. Just get it. Just do it. I had no problem with rich people giving their money away and not getting a benefit from it besides their favorite football team winning games. It has never hurt my feelings one day. I totally like that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Jason, did I just see you drive by New Mexico State University? Chris would like to say hi to those fantastic football players out there at New Mexico State University who absolutely own fraud freeze.
Yeah, that's funny.
Wow.
Brutal. Look at that freeze frame too, man.
Yeah, look at that. He froze.
Just
because he's in New Mexico. Freeze.
Yeah. No, but I mean,
it will be not poetic.
I do want to bring up the fact too that
poetic justice.
It's going to be key to see with Russell and this commitment, if this happens and this flip goes, is like, what does he do impact wise? Because with these wide receivers, right, in this class, can he tap a nod towards more? I don't know. We'll see. I think he's more of a Texas. Obviously, everyone's saying that's kind of the route, Texas, or maybe goes back to LSU to Corey Moore. But, that would be an interesting one to see what happens if he does get that flip. And maybe that's also the push of saying how he wants to obviously get his commitment done and his recruiting process over with Russell before the season, right? So that's going to be a big deal. And it will be interesting to see how that plays. And I do think you have a really unique weapon with, Courtney Morgan and how he manages this NIL and really getting guys in the right place and stepping through this process of helping them understand what Bama can offer them, why they go about the way they go about, right? Instead of just this massive, maybe lump sum of money. I would imagine most schools do, but we really see it. And I guess, and it's talked about a lot with Courtney Morgan. So we'll see where it goes. It'll be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
Well, we got a question. Jay or Jance, God bless America. I was going to ask Jay a question and then realized Jance had come in here. He's just snuck on in here, quiet as ever. I want to give you the.
Always does. Don't say nothing.
I know, right? I want to give you the final word on. Now, Chris, don't make me make the connection here. Don't make me say it. Jay,
don't do it. Don't do it, Ty. Don't.
And you already know what I can say.
And I turned my head. Yup. And I turned my head. Don't do it, Ty. That's bait.
A minor. Okay. Anyways, Jan. Talk to me about Kalen Russell. I'm going to give you the final word on what you think Alabama can do here.
Oh, well, first of all, man, appreciate me to be on the show. I am sick as all hell. Those fragrances finally got me. Fragrance testing, and it literally made me sick. So here I am. Man. Here I am. Just under the weather, sick as a dog, but it is what it is. No, I think Bama, there's a great chance they can land him. There's a great chance. I think Courtney Morgan has done a phenomenal job kind of leading the pack. Like I kind of talked about before, normally Nick Saban was kind of the lone officer. He was like the general, and of course he had somebody else else underneath him, but for the most part he was the main dog for a lot of these kids to come to the University of Alabama. Nowadays it's a partnership, right? It's like everybody is almost equal in a way, and so there's a lot of youth. You do have some sort of experience, but I think the most important part is all the way from the athletic directorship all the way to Courtney Morgan from his position to the coaching staff that we have now. All of them can connect with these kids, and that's something that I think even with the last 2 to 3 Alabama coaching staffs, they just couldn't really do. Right? If you were going to go to Alabama, you were going to go there because of Nick Saban. You weren't going to go there because a lot of it was because of the coaches, because you weren't too sure if the coaches were going to stay for about a year. Like, you don't know if they were rental property or not. And so with this coaching staff, it's a new belief that these guys can be here for a full long-term commitment. Courtney Morgan has sold the idea of kind of more of a, from what I've heard, it's more of a family atmosphere. It's that Dabo Sweeney sort of flavor that we've heard that's made him so successful for all those years, right? Remember the whole thing between like Clemson produces family and Alabama produces more machinery. That's what I've been hearing a lot. So, they can land it. They can land it. I mean, Alabama right now. I mean, a lot of people thought that Kalen DeBoer and his coaching staff couldn't land a top 15 recruiting class. Well, they're on the verge of landing a top 5 class. So we'll see what they can do, man. But I listen. This is what whether they can or not. Bama's gonna be Bama. They're gonna land at least a top 5 class. Matter of fact, they've only landed one top 5 class. And I'm just taking the number because they've literally been inside the top 5 since 2011. The last time they were outside of the top 3 was 2018, and that was when they were 5th. So so top 5 is probably going to be the standard. But really, in reality, we should probably saying, hey, they're probably going to land the top 3 class. But no, we'll see what they can do. We'll definitely see what they can do. I'm surprised you didn't recognize my college
the BMS.
Football.
Yeah,
my college football pro. This is
represent.
This is my team. This is my dynasty team, guys.
I like it,
I'll be starting dynasty once that game kicks off.
Bro, I think it's a good thing for all of us that Alex Moran will not be in the game because we would be, hey, trickle down banging is a hell of a thing, and we would all be in some trouble.
Listen, he led my team to a national championship appearance, man. So he can do whatever he wants. We're gonna slide that thing under the table.
I like
Whoa. It. We don't speak that out loud. We don't speak illegal activities on the broadcast.
And we've been letting it slide for decades. Now everything is now starting to come off the table.
Yeah, I like it.
Jay, I wanted to give you this one right here, and then I wanted to lead us into a USC topic because I think that a lot of people are wondering how USC is going to do in the Big Ten. I thought it was going to be an interesting year if the rest in peace Pac-12 had stayed together for USC because of what they're replacing. It's going to be real interesting in the Big Ten. But before we get there, Anthony, Miami fan, thank you for the comment. He's saying, Ty, is there a quarterback in Texas or California in the 2025 class I should be looking out for if Georgia is able to flip Luke Nickel from Miami? Because a lot of people are saying UGA is possibly flipping. Who do you think that, whether it's in Texas, whether it's in California, Jay, do you think there's a quarterback out there that fits that Mario Cristobal scheme that Anthony should be on the lookout for?
Ooh, man.
You'd probably have to flip one because the quarterbacks there's a lot of commitments.
Yeah, there is.
That's the thing. I was about to say that's where the big problem comes in is most likely going to have to flip somebody. Now, granted, flipping Nickel probably won't hurt you as bad, but I know they had some interest in what is this Antoine Hill.
Yeah.
Which I think Hill's actually pretty solid. Out of Georgia, 6'5", 215. Nice arm. I think I was looking at a little bit of film of him like a couple of weeks back because I was looking at him because Florida was looking at him. And, I mean, he's a top 200 player in the country, so it wouldn't be that bad to be able to go in that direction. But, yeah, I mean, it feels like slim pickings right now, right?
I mean, that's
on
the
ones that you really, 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 really want.
Yeah,
I think Antoine Hill's probably the one that Miami has the best chance of landing. You got to steal him from, the in-state rival of Florida.
Oh,
but I don't think. Battle. I mean, I think y'all can outbid him. Yeah, I mean, standard in-state recruiting battle. Throw a little money there. Break them off. You'd be good.
Now, Jay, since we are talking about recruiting, and I think it's only right, give us an insight into Oklahoma, what you're looking forward to there before we really move into this, what USC needs to do. And also, let the people know, Jay, y'all have a quarterback in your class currently who I was about to say he's one of the more underrated prospects, but the composite has him as the number 174 guy in the nation. I still think he will climb. I watched him live. I'm very aware of what he can do. And I watched him live when I think he was going into his freshman year. And holy smokes, that kid, there were 5 stars where I was. And still people were gathering to see this young man spin the ball. Fantastic player. Talk to us about Sperry. Talk to us about Oklahoma recruiting. What do the people need to be on the lookout for?
So leading off with Sperry, the one thing that, and as you mentioned, and I've heard this from some other folks that have been to some of these events, that the way he spins that ball,
it's
impressive. The way that flick comes off of his wrist, it's poetic, right? And then you can go on his social media and watch him and just flick it. It just looks like poetry. He looks like a quarterback. He looks like one that should be gearing himself in preparation for potentially going to the league. He has all of that. And now that he's down at Denton Guyer, he's left Oklahoma, left Midwest City, Carl Albert, won a state championship with that school, going back home because mom was commuting back and forth because she was still working in the DFW area, in the North Dallas area. And so now that he's back home down at Denton Guyer, he's following kind of the road of the Jackson Arnold. And he may win Elite 11 whenever he goes, right? Just because of just his ability to not only throw the ball with touch, but man, the spin is beautiful. So I'd say go watch his highlights. Just watch him just toss the ball around and you'll understand what I mean when I say the flick. It's really weird. It's really beautiful. It's poetry. Besides that, man, Oklahoma recruiting, the bigger thing right now is offensive line conversations, right? Oklahoma's in on at least 4 big-time linemen in Babaloa, Fasusi, Haywood, as well as Lamont Rogers. Their name is in the hat with all of them in some capacity. The question is going to be, will Oklahoma be able to close? This past 24 class was so big with offensive linemen. Their whole goal and purpose was to really stock up on what we know Bedenbo wants to start building and working with, right? And so we're seeing that. And now this class feels like it may be a little bit smaller, but I think 26 is going to be bigger. But at the same time, I do know that Bedenbo likes a lot of the players in this class. So with those 4 in the battle, then Fogier, which was the very underrated player that flew up into top 100 after
and he's not done.
And he ain't done. I think
he's not done rising.
To climb, right?
You and I talked about this when
I think
he committed.
He's going to climb. Yeah. Yep. And it was funny because I remember dropping the video on the commitment and I told everybody like, hey, yeah, he looks 3-star now. And there's a lot of some of the recruiting services that haven't even rated him yet. Don't worry, he ain't gonna stay there.
No,
the kid's special, and guess what happened? He followed exactly the model I expected from him. He hit one camp. People told him like, wait, he hasn't played much football. Oh, he has that technique?
Yeah,
without experience? Yeah, move him up. He's gonna surprise folks, and so I think the offensive line though is gonna be the most interesting for Oklahoma, and then of course. D-line, you still got some players in the irons in the fire. You got a Christian Evans. You've got a Floyd Boucard out of Miami Central. I know that is a hotbed and basically a feeder system for the University of Miami, but he's a transplant. He's not from there. He just now is going to school there because he's from Canada. He's Canadian. And he's only played for, I think, a year and a half, 2 years. And so... but he's starting to make waves, beating people up basically in Baltimore at the UA camps. He is definitely one to keep your eyes on. I'm sensing that Oklahoma has a good chance. They're going to be battling Miami for it because they're local. But I think he's one that Oklahoma is going to really put in work on, adding him with Trent Wilson. It's going to be fun. So I think the trenches is going to be very interesting. Your skill spots, man, I think we've got like 1 or 2 wide receiver spots left that we may fill. That room looks really good. Linebacker, we probably need to add 1 linebacker. So there's a lot of moving pieces. I don't think Oklahoma takes a big class this time.
Metric ton of linebackers on campus already. And they're good.
We do. We got a lot of players that can play both. They can play linebacker, tight end, or even safety, and it's just the deciding factor of where you actually want them to be on the field, right? I really do hope that we can regain momentum with the Jonah Williams, especially because of how well baseball's doing right now.
He's going to ask
because that's going to be the tough one.
Mm-hmm.
The tough part is with him, it's a baseball football buy, right? Oklahoma sold him on the idea of, dog, you come here, we'll put you wherever you want to play. We'll make you work because you're that good, right?
True.
And then Skip Johnson, the baseball coach, which helped us land Taylor Tatum, the number 1 running back out of the 24 class.
Great point.
He gave him the great pitch of the same thing. Hey, we know how to do the two-sport thing. We've done that for years. Kyler Murray was a number 9 pick in the MLB draft, starting quarterback here. We made it work perfectly for him. To the point where, Kyler comes and kicks it. And I think Kyler was actually here recently doing some batting practice right when the conference playoff started. So it's going to be a hard sell because LSU is heavy in there too, and A&M, and both of them are also doing very well on the baseball field. We'll see how it goes. If Oklahoma can get into the Super Regional, which they're right on, they play tonight at 8 o'clock. They're on pace. If they finish off UConn, they're at the Soups. Good chance we can make something happen, man. But I think Jonah's the one. If there's one player I would love to get my hands on, him and Max Granville.
I like that. There's another linebacker too, and I was just looking over that with Christian Jones out of Nebraska, right? The linebacker out of Nebraska, Omaha.
And he's coming to visit.
Yeah, so I mean, he needs to force that to be number 1 ranked in Nebraska.
I'm so happy that Dawson Merritt, because I was worried about Oklahoma and the Dawson Merritt saga, and whenever he said, hey, this is Bama or Nebraska, I was like, thank you, Lord Jesus, thank you.
I hate y'all for that. I totally wanted to fight Ty on that one. I almost sent Ty like a package in the mail with booby traps of like flowers and stuff to ruin his home. I actually was gonna put glitter bombs in there and have him open it up and be glitter bombs all over the place,
because
you're never gonna clean it all up. It's gonna be you're gonna remember me all the time. So I'm gonna send you a glitter bomb next time, dog. But hilarious.
Nah, that's a good.
That Dawson Merritt is good, and he's a Kansas kid, man. That's what got me, man. Venables has done a great job in that area. We've done a great job overall, still in Nebraska kids. We've got 3 tight ends in the last couple cycles from up there, and a linebacker. I'm hoping we can, but Christian Jones is another elite one that will be great. He'll be visiting, I think, in 2 weeks, so that's a good thing.
I feel like with Jones too. Adam, what's going on, man? Adam's in here again. What's up, Adam?
This is a great question as well.
Yeah, no, we'll get after it in here in a minute. I just want to get to this. I think with Jones, it's going to really come down because just the way Nebraska is so hot right now with recruiting. They are what they're doing there. I mean, Matt Rule is hitting it, man. He's hitting it hard, and I'm impressed. Good for him because Nebraska needs to be relevant again. They need to. It's good for college football when Nebraska's relevant.
True.
I like to see that. So,
and I'm gonna ask this in all sincerity: why is anybody surprised? Right? We had track records with this dude at very small schools,
100%,
turning things around in ways you're like, wait, what he did
fast
at Temple, at Baylor,
right?
What? He has given us a track record and a blueprint that he knows how to build, and Dylan Raiola has shown us that he may have to start as a freshman. It may be rocky, but their schedule's kind of optimal. It might not be a bad idea.
For the first time in a minute.
Right?
Dude, I think it's nice for Raiola. He gets to get in there, get his flow. I think Rule will set him up perfectly with getting confidence. I think it's going to look really good for them.
Yep.
And again, I would like to see Nebraska return to what everyone, if you go back in the day, for those of us who know what Nebraska used to be, I'd like to see him get back to that. It makes it more competitive from a nationwide recruiting standpoint too.
There's a good chance they could start the season 7-0 or 6-1.
Yeah, I like that. I
with a freshman starting the ball, because that's when they play Ohio State. They get to Ohio State at game 8. I mean, you start with UTEP, Colorado, in which I think Colorado's going to give them hell again, and Colorado may win that game. But you got Northern Iowa, Illinois, which I've not been sold on them in years, Purdue on the road, Rutgers comes to them, and then they travel to Indiana.
Yeah.
There's a good chance they could start this season off 7-1 with the way that Matt Rule runs things, especially because the defense looked so much better, especially at the tail end of last season. They started to get better. And that is what you want out of a Matt Rule team is if the defense is showing you, it's kind of like how I rave about like Venables and Tide, kind of back to your point, in the latest update on returning production, Oklahoma's number 3 on defense, which is absurd. They're bringing back the number 3 group of production because it went up to 89%, I think. But that's what you want. If you got a dude that his thing is defense and his defense is showing, the rest will come down, right?
Agreed.
He got to get his side of the ball in order, and I think he has. Now, granted, I'm gonna say this as a caveat. He was playing the Big Ten West in this, so I can't give him too many props. It's kind of hard to get too many props on that side of the ball.
Sycamore. He's got Mary Mother of the Poor.
Times 2.
Right. He's got the school
that
of
entire
the blind.
side is awful. But again, he's basically playing them again all the way up until Ohio State. So there is a very good chance this team shocks us.
True fact. And going back with Adam, I see your question, but real quick with Dawson Merritt, I do feel like that's an Alabama. I think it's almost done. You can feel it. There was a recruiting thing that just came out. Have you guys seen Fan Cave? Have you guys seen Fan Cave? This is interesting. I've never heard of this, right? With Fan Cave until just recently as I'm digging into it, where you go in and basically you can pay for your recruits to come to a school. It's wild. You know what I'm saying? Wild. You want to talk about a whole new level?
Good old NIL, baby.
Holy jeez, dude. Like they do special things on there. They get on there and talk. Just them and the fans. I mean, his Fan Cave following for Alabama is wild. So I mean, he's talking about it too. Yeah, and Robinson's the reason for that. But Adam, your question: would you prefer to start experienced players in the secondary, even if they have less talent than true freshmen? By the way, where can I get one of those hats? You can get one of these hats at Victos Gear. Okay, it says Victos. I wear it for the defense aspect, right? That's a shield and a sword. And the next aspect is, and you guys could even answer this one too and jump in on this, because I think this is a good question overall from a defensive, especially from UJ on the Oklahoma side, because you know how BV looks at defense, and it's very impressive, right? With his overall track record and obviously how he sees defense in general. Like the guy's a mastermind with defense.
Right.
I don't know if it depends on what we're talking, right? You have experienced players with less talent compared to true freshmen. It depends on what type of defensive scheme you're running. I think it depends on what we're talking about. Talent gap is that's a big aspect of it. Like what are we talking talent gap here? Because if it's significant, like if I got guys who I know just do not fit my scheme, I'd rather see the true freshmen who do fit the scheme and have already played maybe something like this in high school. There's something to think about. How fast are they picking up on the defense, these true freshmen, and being able to see and make these reads based off the keys that are given in the rules we have within our defense, right? So it's a great question, but it's also hard to answer because I think there's a lot of little aspects. What from an Oklahoma side of things, how would you see BV going about this?
If I may, I think when it comes to that and Venable's side, he'd probably take the more experienced initially, even with the upside, because we all know that with Venable's defense and even Saban's, is another example to even go into that. There's a lot of complexities in the way the defense is set. Very aggressive in certain moments. And other times you got certain positions that require a lot of responsibility. Me and Ty knows I always brings this up when I talk about it. There's one reason why I hate true freshmen playing, because it's very easy to trick them, right? That's right. Like Caleb Downs was out there cooking as a defender. Fantastic talent. Sucks that he left. That was what Texas was doing. They were just baiting him, right? Yeah. Sarkisian was losing the master of his mind of saying, I want Caleb in certain areas because if he's out the way, we'll play a hell of a lot better because that's how much of a threat he is, right? So teams scheme for young players. And so to me, Venables and the way that I've seen him do things, he wants the guys that can understand the scheme better and possibly get in the spot better. Yeah. That way everybody else can do their jobs rather than have the guy that's just kind of freelancing because they're just that much more talented. You kind of want that experience means something. Another example, Oklahoma State, what was that? Was it 2022?
With Jim Knowles.
2021. When they had one of those top defenses in the country. No, the Knowles, exactly. that was like a team full of super seniors. Talent-wise, were they the most talented defense out there? No, but they were very, very technically sound. Like, there's a difference between talent and being technically sound sometimes.
That's right.
Like, they're collegiate athletes, so they're not just bums, but they're technically sound in comparison to a true freshman who's still sometimes raw or wet behind the ears. You see that difference on the field, and I believe that experience is a lot better for the short term. Long term, you're probably going to go with the upside, especially as they, of course, surpass them. But the experience is second to none in this game. That's why you see teams are a lot better when they're full of seniors or juniors who's got experience rather than a team full of freshmen with a whole bunch of talent.
Michigan.
You always see the upperclassmen prevail.
Great example.
Michigan was a great example. Michigan example this year.
And I mean, and that's an interesting thing you bring up too, though, is also the position aspect is really key. So, Adam, I know where you're going with your question, and I appreciate the question because it is a really good one. And thank you for that super chat, man. Like,
thank you very much.
Love that. But I think that question really comes into with Alabama, right? And this newer philosophy that as Coach Sean will always say, from an Alabama fan standpoint, you get Sabanized, right? So you're very used to seeing that 3-4 package, right? That 3-4 really a nickel, the way he was running it in and out with either a 2-high shell and then moving back to single high because Caleb Downs helped that a lot, I think. But at the same time, with this position, again, you put so much focus in this defense with that swarm D. You have a lot of focus. That Husky position has a lot of requirements, right? Has a lot of requirements. So you need that experience there. I think that's why, when people talk about these different aspects, and I'm glad you brought it up, Jay, of where they're playing on the field. Like, if I don't want necessarily my middle linebacker to be a true freshman, right? That's the one area that you need to be really strong down the middle. And hence that Keon Sabb grab for Alabama was huge because now you have Keon back at free safety and he sits as your single high safety. You're still going to see maybe some 2-high safeties, right? From a 2-high look. I think you'll still see that. The cornerback position is going to be interesting because, your field corners at times left on an island is going to have to play some match zone. You're still going to see pattern match. It's just going to be a little different as far as some of the rules, right? And so I get where you're going, but I totally see what you're saying, Jay. And that's a great point about these positions.
Let me even add to that, right? We just mentioned about Michigan and their experience, right? And we talked about Jim Knowles and how well he did at Oklahoma State. Yeah. When he got to Ohio State, what happened, right? Like he was changing things around, but he couldn't get past the experience of Michigan, right? Their offense was just at a point that it's just no matter how well he did and everything else in the year, that was a struggle for him for the last couple of years. But now this year's team is pretty darn experienced. That's why everybody's picking Ohio State so heavily because they've got a team built to do it, and Knowles does very well with experienced guys. That is his thing, right? You get some guys that are seniors, super seniors. You're probably going to have one of, if not the best defense in the country because that's just how he's been able to operate. And he's got a lot more talent in comparison to what he had at Oklahoma State, right? And so for him, that's why you're going to see a difference. And so just kind of to that point, he may have had more talent. His experience could not outdo the experience on the other side. That's why I would go with that. And I get there's somebody made a chat comment about Surtain. Yeah, there's always an exception to the rule, but he's not the rule. You're not going to see Surtains everywhere, right? No. That's not one. It's like there's not a Caleb Downs in college football besides Caleb Downs.
And he struggled too.
Right.
CeeDee Lamb put him in a blender.
Right. Surtain didn't even start. He didn't start until halfway point of the season. That's when he actually got started because Trayvon went down with the ACL injury. And even then he struggled.
And that's my thing, too. And that's always been my thing with freshmen. I want freshmen to play. I never want them to start until later in the season because then they start picking up what people try to throw at them to just throw them off base. And it's like, I see where your little games are. I got you. I'm ready for the mental aspect of it. And it always works later than it does within the first couple of days. Now, certain positions I'm cool with it. Like defensive line, throw a freshman out there. If he's got the weight, Hell, he'll just wreak havoc. Edges,
100.
same thing.
Edges,
Their job is to go
yes.
get the quarterback.
Yes.
Just terrorize somebody.
Seriously,
Yeah.
if you can set an edge, you're good.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure you set the edge. Don't get too aggressive and dart inside where they're just going to go right outside of you and the play's busted. As long as you can set that edge, we're good. We're good, ready to go.
And a lot of the times, a good freshman can do that portion of it. It's
100.
It's the ones that aren't as good. They are the overly aggressive ones. But the good ones, now I didn't even say great. I didn't say great. I didn't say generational.
Yeah.
The good ones can at least set the edge and make sure they don't screw up on that part. Great and exceptional, they're just going to dominate regardless. It don't matter. But if you ain't got one that's just solid, they're going to get tricked.
Y'all know the memes of the bell curve, right? Like where it's all those memes.
Yes.
About the bell. I love your point because the good ones are usually at the top, and the exceptional ones, like the 5 stars, while they, you develop them a little bit, they're going to go out there and be great. I've noticed a tendency to be like, oh, well, I don't have to set the edge because they're not getting around me. Right? And it's like, in high school, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
They're not getting around you. You're going to nail this running back. You're going to kill the quarterback, and it's all love. But in college, they'll get around you, right? And so it is a fascinating bell curve. Yeah, it's a fascinating bell curve that you see. Gentlemen, I wanted to transition.
Fair point.
I wanted to transition to this right here. We got 3 topics. And Jance, I'm going to let you pick. We want to talk about EA College Football 2025 because I saw you went on a nice little rant about that. Do we want to talk about coaches on the hot seat, or do we want to talk about what USC must do if they don't want to fall to number 4 or 5 in the Big Ten?
Oh, we got to talk about EA because I know that's Chris's experience. That's his forte.
EA, it is. Lead us off, my man.
So obviously, the trailer of EA College Football 25 came out not that long ago. As a matter of fact, pre-order sales have actually been skyrocketing through the roof. Matter of fact, it's actually been the most pre-ordered, not just college football game, but it's the most pre-ordered football game and sports game of all time, surpassing even 2K17, 2K16, and all these FIFA games. So the biggest question, the biggest concern for College Football 25 is looking like now is it going to be a copy and paste of Madden? Is it gonna pull off the copy? And I see that comment.
That's foul.
You're an asshole, Boomer. 129. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, you're right. This mic is definitely looks like I'm either on the Backstreet Boys, in sync. Yeah, you can call it Britney Spears. That's cool. But I don't got enough money for a fucking Surefire, okay?
All right. Everybody. Yeah.
Jance,
time for you to line up at wide receiver, Boomer.
I'm so sorry. I
had to address that comment. But no, the biggest concerns with like the game right now is it a copy and paste of Madden? Microtransactions, $99 deluxe editions where you can play early access. You got the 150 Madden bundle and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, college football 25 is literally going to be it's about to be the biggest game possibly of the year. And if GTA 6 wasn't delayed, if GTA 6 wasn't delayed, that probably would have topped it. But this is about to be insane. The only downside is the fact that Dynasty, you can't transfer it to Madden. That sucked, but it makes sense because you got to pay the players. The NFLPA has to pay the players. That has nothing to do with the NCAA themselves, right? That's an extra $600, maybe $1,000 you have to kind of put into it. Road to Glory is going to start off with college. It's gonna be story mode. We've seen this from a bunch of EA Sports games. They've changed it. It's gonna be story mode. It's not gonna look like how it used to be in the past. It's gonna be pretty resemblant to 06 compared to some of the latest NCAA football games. And then gameplay wise, the biggest concern is that it's gonna look like a Madden ripoff. There were some things I liked. There were some things I didn't like. The offensive line trench play looks a little bit better. But there's still it's the same kind of EA signature where players are getting kind of sucked in to certain animations. That's just one side that it just can't be fixed was the offensive line trench play. But running play looks really, really good. Receiving play looks really good. And then I would even say from the secondary, like it's really good. Like you can now disguise coverages in that game. We've never seen that before. So it's going to be very, very exciting. But I think the more important key factor is that, college football is back, and we'll see. Like I said, I'll be creating my team. team builder is going to be in it. I'm very excited to see how Dynasty is because they have it's confirmed that NIL is in the game, and the transfer portal's in the game. So we'll see how that looks. I'm excited.
Coop, my man, happy you could join us. We're in here talking about EA 2025 and whether or not it's going to break all of our hearts. Because as excited as I am, gentlemen, let's remember, EA is the one doing this, and EA has won worst company like 3 times in a row. I mean, they are abhorrent. Chris, talk to me about this game.
So let me break this down for you, okay? So first and foremost, let's just be real. A lot of people out there are falling for the eye candy. If you have played Madden since Madden 19 till now, you will realize a lot of the stuff that's in this EA game, this new EA 25, it's already been around. They've just made it polished, right?
Wear and tear system.
If I may, Ty, when I was studying for the bar, I accidentally did a little bit too much of Madden to the point where I cracked the top 300 in the world as far as being ranked and everything. So I played Madden religiously. It broke my heart when they took away Kingsbury's playbook, because that was the only playbook I really used outside of the West Coast. But essentially, it's not going to be a reskin game. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be a Debbie Downer. It's a fresh look on what they've been trying to do. They've been saying for the longest that it was going to run off the Madden, engine. But the thing is that you saw some of the mechanical things in there that you definitely want to see, and some of the things that really matter about placement of the ball, different things like that. There's some really interesting features on the game. I like the fact that I don't necessarily love the fact that you're not going to have impact players in here or X factors, but you are going to have some of the more external things like, crowd noise,
love that
things
one,
like that to rattle you, all the rest of that stuff. But I think what people really need to realize is that this is EA, and we all know that this game is going to be very frustrating. Why? Because there's a chance that you're going to have nano blitzers in this game. There's a chance that you are going to have guys just running crossers all the time. So here's a pro tip for everybody: clouds. Fix your clouds before you start playing, doing anything. Adjust your clouds accordingly, because that can be the difference between you running 3 to 4 plays and just basically devouring your entire defensive playbook to try to figure out what you really want to run. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm really excited about the game. Some of the songs, some of the different themes. It's a childhood memory finally coming back to fruition, right? So I don't think it's going to be bad, but I think some of the things we are falling for some of the stuff that they have reskinned basically as, college gimmicks. I think something that people are overlooking is that damn field goal game. I was like, that's going to be tricky, because that's a new mini game that I haven't seen in Madden yet. And so I think a lot of people haven't even really noticed that, because when you're on the road, if they ice you, it's going to be hard to really get that thing right there in the middle. But outside of that, I mean, I think it's going to be really good. I mean, to me, I think Madden 23 was pretty good. It sucked for me simply because I play with the Cardinals, and as we all know, the Cardinals were gutted this past year. They really had nothing. J.J. Watt was off the defense. They lost key guys, Isaiah Simmons. They lost other guys. So, I mean, you couldn't really lurk or do anything. Everybody was slow on the defensive side. I think Marco Wilson was their best defensive player on the game. So, I mean, outside of that, I think this game is going to be really good. It's going to have a fresh look. I'm hoping that they do bring back some I'd like to have at least, even if it's DLC or whatever case may be, I'd like to have something with like a Legends mode or something like that in there, to where we could get that to be able to go back and play with some of those Clemson teams, those OU teams, those Nebraska teams.
You can.
It didn't matter.
You can. It's called Ultimate Team.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, well,
Ultimate Team's gonna be there. Ultimate Team's gotta be there, man. That's a cash cow for them, right? But the good thing is you ain't got to use it. It's one of those features you can ignore it if you need to. But kind of jumping on even what Chris said, and I agree 100% with you, Chris, on the people falling for the eye candy portion of it. But I think that the expectations that everybody needs to understand is this is going to be the first one, right? This is the first one.
Good point.
They've got to start somewhere.
True.
And the one thing that I think a lot of people have to understand, and I haven't played Madden since like 12, right? I probably 15, 12, one of the two. I just stopped playing Madden because for me, I didn't get anything out of it. But the thing is, too, is that the NFL, that talent gap is not very far off. College, you're going to see a massive gap in some of these teams. And some people are going to lose their mind, especially when you're doing your rebuilds. If you say, oh, yeah, you know what? Because my squad is going to be Coastal Carolina just for the fun of it because I like their jerseys. But if you're taking, some of these small G5 schools and you plan on trying to run things, there's going to be a gap. And you're going to be mad every week because you're going to get your tail kicked and you're not going to be sure why. Like, wait a minute, this don't make no sense. I'm the controller. Why can't I just dominate these people? Now, EA's hopefully going to be smart enough to make that work. They claim there's a gap in it. So it's going to look like college. You're going to have to work to get there. So as long as everybody's understanding the expectation of this is the first one and it's going to take a little bit of time, be all right.
Jay, can you please make some time for a dynasty, man? I need you, Jay.
Yeah,
I need you, Jay. I need the numbers, man, but I need Jay in here.
the way that my time works. Yeah, I can't do y'all dirty, man, because there's a good chance I'll go 4 days without being able to play. Right? I may go a week and a half without being able to play.
Well, I was gonna say, what if we did it like the regular season, like a real season where we go, we advance
every Saturday?
Yeah, something like that.
Saturdays I'm going to be watching football.
I would say
right. I'm Friday night, Saturday. I'm
every Thursday night is advanced.
Hey,
well, yeah.
I'll just say, as a Sooner fan, we got 11 a.m. open now, so we could play at 11 a.m.
That is true.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Coop, I wanted to give you as Boomer129 is saying, you've been earning your stripes, right? Just need the teardrop tattoo. Boomer129 is on a roll this evening. Talk to us about your expectations about EA College Football 2025. I almost butchered that entire thing. I'm going to shut up now.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. First and foremost, the divorce rate's going to rise a tad bit. We all know that that's about to happen because some dude's going to be playing to get in the college football playoff and can't go to family pictures. And so, that's going to be it. But no, I'm just really excited because, you incorporate some of what today college football is. Like, if I would have rewound and gone back to the 2014 was the last one, and I was like, hey, we're gonna have this thing called NIL and paying players and everything, and everybody been like, shut your damn mouth, like, get out of here. But now, like, I'm wondering, are we gonna have these pieces to where dude's sitting there, he's frustrated, he just lost a game, then all of a sudden his starting outside linebacker says, I need more NIL or I'm transferring out, at the end of the season. Like, are those things? So are we getting if we're going to get to play with those things, you're going to see some folks like punching TVs and they're not even playing anybody. They're just pissed off at a computer generated emotional decision. And so there's all those types of things where, like, I'm wondering if there's, I'm wondering if you're going to have a toggle because people are going to play it a couple times and be like, all right, I'm out. I can't handle this. Like, is that going to be the reason why a dude quits playing because his quarterback bounces and goes to Coastal Carolina and plays for Jay?
Hey, I'm going to be stealing a lot of y'all people at Coastal Carolina. Our NIL is elite. We're at the coast. We got crab legs, and we selling them like crazy. We got a whole bunch of donations from that, baby.
In Madden, that actually happens. There's been a bunch of times where, I even had Hollywood. Hollywood was on my team at one point. He came up to me and he was like, "Hey, I'm not getting the ball enough, coach.
I got that.
I need at least 6 touches next game." And he's like, "Can you promise me that?" And I'm like, "We'll see." It actually, you have to actually pick how you want to respond. Like, yeah, we'll give you this many touches, and then you have to go out there, and then you're like, well. If I'm playing the computer, then yeah, I can go out there and do that, whatever. But if I'm playing against somebody in real life, I may have to, pivot a little bit. But that's an actual real element that I can see them putting in the game because they've done it in Madden before.
Yeah, I just want to throw a slant pattern, not deal with NIL. So, but no, those are the pieces. I want to see the game and. There's going to be, you're going to have people on both sides. You're going to have the very, very vocal minority who hate everything about it and complain about everything. And there's going to have a bunch of people who are just excited to have the opportunity to play for their, their favorite school again. I'm going to be on the latter.
Bro, when I figure out how to make Travis Hunter transfer to Bama, it's over. It's over.
I knew you were going to try to figure it out. I knew it.
I'm going to get in there in the code and be like, this has got to work somehow.
You know what's funny? And Coop, Chris, nice to meet you guys. I know it's my first time on with you guys, man. I'm Jake. But I'll tell you, you know what's funny is you just brought up something really interesting with the people, like how fast are they going to quit the game and slam their controller down and smash them or a fist through the wall. It's funny because now do you get a realistic taste of what coaches are going through from an NIL standpoint and like everything that's going on?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Think about this. Like, I mean, dude, how many people are going to be like so pissed off? And then you're like, wait a minute, like what is my team going through trying to recruit my own team the own guys on the squad plus recruit, the guys who are picking which school they're going to go to out of high school. And I have to make sure the NIL is managed. Like there's actually a thought process in this now where, hey, maybe the NCAA and college football did a real nice sneak around just to show us what's up. You know what I'm saying? It's interesting perspective because how many guys are going to quit over?
Look, if you're just playing by yourself like Jay is probably going to do, you ain't got to throw your controller down on the ground. You ain't got to punch the TV. Just restart the game. Everybody does it. Just restart the game. You may have to play it again, but just restart the game.
Yeah. They'll probably have the option, the one option I loved in 14 is you can simulate like drives.
Yeah.
All the way till you get to the point where you actually want to play. You can simulate all the way to the fourth quarter, and if you're doing good, then boom, just take over and win the game.
Hey, boom. There you go.
That's how you get over frustration.
I'm wondering if you get the premium package, do you just get a voucher for like one free replacement controller also, or
no. They banking on you breaking those bad boys. This is a money making machine for them.
Yes,
$65 a pop. Yeah.
Now, if you have somebody's like home protection that you get for like your wireless carriers, like $15, $20, $30 a month or whatever, they will replace controllers. 100%.
This is. Jay, you don't have to. You don't do it anymore. That's not your job.
I don't do that anymore. It's been 3 years, but I'm just telling you, I've done it before. I've done it. I'm in sales still, and I've done it before. I've actually had I've had a controller and a computer replaced.
I needed that when I was playing Elden Ring.
It was worth it.
You could.
Oh yeah, no, Todd, don't even talk about Elden Ring. I haven't got past the beginning of that game yet. I've turned that off, and it's still sitting in my Xbox at this moment.
I must say, man, you gotta put some time into a Dark Souls game, man. But you could just get the Elite controller and just replace the paddles.
Yeah. Bingo. That's true.
Just get paddles and just replace it.
What I would recommend to anybody that's going to play this game, before you take one live snap, go and practice. Go get familiar with your stuff, because I had to start doing that with Madden because I was like, it's starting to get wacky. And that's a point, because Jance was in there with me and Kieran when we were talking about on his space the other day. That's one thing I'm praying that they don't put on there is those damn wacky ass gimmicky animations that they had back in Madden 20. You could do a spin
played one button
already
mode.
be 6 yards up the field and have a step on your defender, and that's a touchdown. Like
I play one button mode. I don't do all of that complexity stuff. I didn't get in here to think. I got on here to just go whoop somebody's ass and go to bed. I didn't get in here to work more. I just left my job.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now. Yeah. This is I am getting Wake Forest, and
Demon
this
Deacons.
is for all. I'm making my recruiting pitch to all the recruits. We're giving away ships, planes, cars. Don't ask me how we get
trains,
money.
Automobiles.
Only thing I know, thank BMF, the Gambino family, and all them.
What was that guy from Miami? What was that dude's name from Miami? That was he was a booster, but he was
back in the day.
Yeah, damn it, what's his name?
Yes,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
they did the documentary on him.
Yeah, with
him too with the Ponzi scheme.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
now I gotta look.
We don't want him. We don't want him.
Nah.
Well, it was effective. Hold on now. You might want him because
fair point.
Shapiro, Mike Fort says.
Oh, yep.
Nevin Shapiro.
Nevin Shapiro got a great follow on Instagram if you're not following him.
Really?
Really?
Great
Yeah,
follow.
I like it.
Hey, Ty, if you don't mind me just kind of just asking a question real quick. We got Wake Forest, we got Coastal Carolina. Who else? Like who are y'all doing a rebuild?
Middle Tennessee State because of the
Blue
longest
Mountain
yard.
That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. I like
My
that.
team knows they're going. We make it Blue Mountain State. We're
That's a
going to
good one.
I like
the
that.
MAC conference. We're gonna work our way up.
Hey, what was the Bishop Sycamore? Can we get them?
Bishop Sycamore.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't
that's
be
a good
surprised
one.
if you saw them in a game.
That would be
Tulsa.
a legendary moment.
Tulsa's a very good one.
Tulsa's a
a
great
fun
one.
For me, I'm gonna say, hey, FAU, go Owls. You know,
like
Okay.
Go
Bowling
Owls.
Green's one of my other teams. Bowling Green and Wyoming. Wyoming
This
are
is
the
what
are two of the teams.
I would
Yeah, I
highly
like
recommend people not to do this. Don't create high school teams. Don't do it. We do not want to have a situation where all of a sudden these kids are coming up and saying, "Wait, why are you? That's me. Why am I in the game?" And then we have another situation where we're like, "Okay, we can't create players."
No, aren't they creating a high school game?
No.
Yeah, whoa.
I
Wait.
seen something today where they was creating something, but I don't know if it was real or not.
I don't think with some of the targeting laws that you could do for underage kids that that might not get passed through.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Someone's going to do it though. Someone's going to create IMG Academy, and they're going to create Modern Day, and then they're going to put it in. They're going to put it in that file. People are going to download the
Probably
files,
so.
translate that over, and then all of a sudden, something like that is probably going to happen.
Yeah. It's called Varsity High School Football Varsity Video Game.
Wow. EA's making that?
No, I don't know who the hell's making it. It's releasing on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC.
Oh, let me take a look.
It's already out?
wild.
No,
it's in development stage right now.
I'll tell you what, Undisputed needs to come out, and that needs to be good because I'm ready for another good boxing game so I can get out. That's going to be great. Gentlemen, I want to do one more topic tonight. So we'll let the panel vote. Do we want to talk about coaches on the hot seat, which that could be fun? Or do we want to talk about what USC needs to do this next year to avoid being team number 5 in the Big Ten? We'll just go straight down the panel. Jake, Jay, Jet, Sprinsky, Coop, and Chris. Let me know what y'all want to talk about.
Man,
Maybe so, Lance.
I talked to USC this morning over at Hall of Fame with Jason. So I like the coaches aspect. I think that's pretty interesting, but I can go either or, whatever you guys want to do.
We got 3 votes in chat for hot seat.
I like
as
hot
well.
seat too.
Okay.
Yeah.
See,
I think
hot
we can
seat's
cover.
probably the most intriguing if there's one conversation we could really dive into.
And
Have us
Ty,
here
I
for
think
like
that we
3
can.
more hours.
Yeah, I think we can cover both of them with the hot seat.
That's
Well,
true.
then I can't wait to get to your perspective on that, Coop. I'm going to lead it off, right? Because I think we can have this conversation and have a lot of fun with this. Coaches on the hot seat for me. Everybody is talking about Napier at Florida because I don't know what he did to someone, but they don't like him. He's got one of the most difficult schedules I have ever seen on a college. And don't get me wrong, Jay, OU, y'all have a tough schedule as well. But if I'm not mistaken, don't y'all benefit from getting a lot of games or more games at home than Florida gets, if I'm not mistaken?
No, not this year.
No, not this year. No, we got
because of Red River, that's considered a home game. We only get 3 actual home games, and we get the neutral site game where we're wearing home jerseys, but we're kind of like Georgia, Florida.
No, Antoine Venables. There's no way Venables is on the hot seat. Venables is fine. Venables is going to be just fine, barring a complete collapse, which I don't think anybody here foresees. It would have to be of historic proportions to where we're at the end of the season sitting up here like, what the hell happened? I don't see that. He runs a tight ship. I'll be very brief. I'll be very brief on this. Everybody wants to talk about Napier, and I get it, right? He's got a tough schedule. He did a rebuild a year after he got there, right? You see, like Venables, started his rebuild at Oklahoma immediately. Coach Prime started the rebuild immediately. Napier got there, said, okay, I'm going to work with what I have. And then he started the rebuild year 2. Okay. But gentlemen, there's another coach in that state who I look at and I'm like, nobody's talking about you, but Mario Cristobal, if you don't have another quarterback not take that next step, and if you don't do well with that cupcake schedule, your ass is in trouble. I look at Mario Cristobal and I think, hey, you're under maybe just as much pressure as Napier. Last thing I'll say, this is why. Because at least with Napier, to me, he can go to the administration and say, hey, have you seen what we're going to be playing in 2025? Do you really want to start a new rebuild in 2025 where we still have a difficult schedule? Now you're with somebody new. How's that going to work for recruiting? Buy into me. I started this rebuild a year later. We're recruiting pretty well. Let's ride. With Mario, he's got no excuse. If he doesn't excel, he doesn't have a terrible schedule to hang his hat on. He's got no excuse. Let's go straight down the line. Jake.
No, I think Cristobal is probably your guy. But to be honest with you, I lean more towards like Ryan Day, right? Even though it's not said, and a lot aren't talking. I mean, it's talked about, but I don't know if it's highlighted as, there you go. In depth, 100%. Just because of the fact that Ryan, you look at the talent. I've spoken on this. We talked in depth about this, and Ty, just from a standpoint that Ryan, he's been successful. We can't say he doesn't win because he's won. But as far as what they have talent-wise, what they've continued to do, now bringing in Chip Kelly, right, like to make that offense just have a little more fire is the perspective, I think. And overall, with their talent and the amount of money they've spent, like he has to win. It's in that position he has to win. I think the next question, though, would be who's available from a head coach after that, though. Because that's going to be a really interesting field. We had a lot of movement this year, but what's the movement look like next year? I don't know that we're going to see the same type of movement next year. Just from this amount of coaches in these high-level name coaches. Saban obviously made a huge ripple effect when that went down with him retiring. It affected all over. I mean, you see the depth of where it went down to, even probably in even the high school ranks, right? But I will say, from his standpoint, he needs to win. He has the talent now. He has to convert it, especially with the way they compare and their schedule, talent-wise, what they bring back, what they brought in transfer portal-wise, defense and offense. And overall, again, they're scheduled. He has to win. I think that's your hot seat for him.
Yeah. Jay, what are you thinking, my man?
This one's a little weird to me because, to be honest, there's no reason to be on the hot seat. I mean, it's kind of similar to the Ryan Day type situation. You're constantly winning double-digit seasons. Like, what more do you expect from your particular pro? Now, Ohio State, there is a higher expectations of national championships because they are one of those programs that should be doing that. But others, I'm honestly wondering if James Franklin's probably going to be on the hot seat finally at Penn State. He ain't been able to get past the big programs to push him over the like literally only Michigan and Ohio State, the only teams in his way every single time, right? This year they only have Ohio State and they come to their crib. They travel to USC and that's really it. Like, I mean, Washington's going through their flux of change, right? We've got to see what a Jed Fish does up there. We don't know, what the entire program looks like yet, because it's not like he brought in his quarterback and his entire regime of players like some others have had the opportunity to do. Like with Lincoln when he went to USC, brought in his quarterback, wide receivers, and running backs. He was able to bring in the components he needed. I mean, Franklin literally has done everything great for Penn State except for win the big ones against Michigan, Ohio State, and then a bowl game. Does Penn State think they're bigger? Do they feel like they should be doing better? That's the one I'm curious to. are we getting to the point where they're like, hey, man, we have higher expectations. You should be doing better than this. That one intrigues me the most.
That's a great answer. I was sitting here wondering after I said Cristobal, I was, and Ephraim in the chat pointed it out as well as others. And I was like, I wonder if anybody's going to get to James Franklin. And it took us 2 people before, bam, he's out there. That's a great answer. And Jake, I do agree with you as well.
And to go with that, it's more so because, and sorry to interrupt, it's more of a there was been so much change over the last couple of years. So we still got people that we're giving them a little grace, right? You're getting your second year, you're getting your third year. Like you talk about Napier and Cristobal. They're still fresh in the quote unquote role, but they're not year 3. It's like, hey, look, I need to make something happen this year, right? You gotta at least show some progress. Yeah. And for Franklin, he's been there for a bit and he shows progress every year. But it's like, but dude, can you just like win one of the big ones? No? Okay. Well, I guess not. That's kind of where we're getting at that point.
Going to Coop next, because the order changed when Brinsky hopped out of here. He pulled a fast one on us.
Boop, boop.
I like to do that too. I just like to go on podcasts and then just Kaiser Soze, and everybody's like, "Where did he go?" So, no, Jake, you made a really, really good point. Is I mean the who's next, because obviously the bigger programs that you are talking about, they got to have that answered too, right? Because it's not like I was going to be funny and say it's UAB, screw Trent Dilfer, he better win this year or he's out. No, I was going to say Ryan Day, that got taken. Napier, I was going to clarify on that. Franklin was next. Cristobal, I'm going to go Coach Prime. I think you got to throw his name in there because listen, it's if you see again this year what happened this year with things done differently, then it's a circus. Now it's an absolute. I mean, we all think it's a circus, but now it's an absolute circus because now it's 2 years in a row. And in this day and age of college football, you cannot fall behind. You cannot fall behind in NIL. You cannot fall behind in recruiting, and you can't be tossing. So I mean, exactly. Like Jake said with Napier, I'm so confused right now. I feel like I'm playing that old memory game.
Shuffle the cards, baby.
I don't think, and somebody just said it, Greg. I don't really feel like Dion would be hanging out this year anyway. But if you see this thing go sideways quickly, I mean, a lot of folks are going to have flu-like symptoms and cramps and not be able to come on the field, and they're already going to be struggling to field the team anyway.
Let me jump on that real quick. I only have one rebuttal on that. And I love because Klatt talked about this on the Herd today. Actually, this was what makes it even more intriguing. You said that. Klatt basically pulled out on because Colin said the same thing. Yep. Colin was basically saying, "Hey man, we right. This is a circus. XYZ's happening. This could be like that." And Klatt told him, he's like, "Well, hold on. Let me tell you this. When I sat in front of the AD and I told him you're irrelevant." And I said, no, this isn't a question. This was a statement. Prime has made them relevant. I think they give him grace for 2 more years. Not only because Shedeur is still there, and once Shedeur leaves, they want to see what he can really do. But the economic boom that they've seen in Boulder because of his presence, it's going to be hard to replicate. You fire him too fast, you might lose all of that. They've actually got people putting in. You know what's wild? Y'all know like the Jordan Seaton deal? Like they actually had like NIL battles with people for 5 stars. Like who would have thought of all schools Colorado would ever be able to compete in that arena, right? Like I would have never in a million years, right? Because it's been so long since they've had relevance. So that's the only pushback I give with you, Coop, on that is that because you're right. It looks like a circus and it's acting like a circus. It probably is a circus, right? It looks like a frog, smells like a frog. It's probably a frog, but it could be a fish. It is a frog, right? What's helping him is they're talked about, and that's all Boulder has wanted since like their national championship in the 80s. Talk about us, please.
Well, and I say that, but if we sit here and start looking at a 3-6,
and that's fair,
folks are going to quit driving up. Because that's not an easy drive. I mean, if you're coming out of Denver or anything like that, that's not an easy drive. I mean, you're making, especially during the fall, winter. So I'm just saying, if you're 3-6 And now people are like, look at OU basketball. If you go when they're struggling to kind of just make things happen, like the seats are, slowly starting to fill up. They hit conference season, they start losing, and it's empty. People will show up if there's something that entices them. And as of right now, it's still enticing, because you could say that last year we scrapped everybody and it was understandable. If you start throwing out, a well under 500 record, folks are going to quit showing up, and then Shedeur is going to quit playing, and then it's, what are we doing here?
It'll be interesting even to see
if
he stays. That's going to be the key, because once Shedeur is gone, does he even stay?
I mean,
I don't know.
Deion can. I mean, he can. I don't think that this is something that is legitimate, but I mean, dude's not super healthy. And if it just got all of a sudden, you start adding some, internal stress with the outward body that's breaking down, he can go make Geico commercials and Aflac and stuff and, still make lots of money.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the thing I'm most interested in is I understand year one, where it was like, okay, we're going to go to the portal to rebuild. But whenever they scrap the team in year two and they're now like, oh, we're going back to the portal again, how successful are you going to be if every single year is a rebuild? Continuity, we just got done talking about it, gentlemen. Continuity is a team's best friend. Jake, you can speak to this. You played Division I Power 5 football. Continuity is massive.
That's huge.
But not recruiting, that to me is interesting. And the last thing I'll say, Jance, before I pass it to you, I noticed there were some people in the Colorado media that had some points, and they were like, it came after Dylan Edwards transferred, and they were like, oh, well, if you don't want to compete, we don't want you here. And I did find that a little hypocritical and ironic, because it's like, well, you're living in the transfer portal where people are transferring to have a better shot at being the guy. So how can you reconcile going and getting people who are transferring away from where they're at to go get more playing time, and then you're going to badmouth somebody for going to get more playing time? It just seems like you just dissed your entire class. Like, how in the world do you reconcile those two ideas at the same time? I don't know that he's on the hot seat because of what Jay said, but that's a fascinating thing to think about. Jance, talk to me.
I'm surprised people haven't said this, and I think Brensky, he's going to agree with me on this one, man. But it's Hugh Freeze, and it won't be this year. This year, for the most part, I think they're gonna give him an opportunity. However, I will say this: he is going to have a bad year. He is going to have another down year. I can book it, guarantee it. Put Vegas, put in your betting, put in your bookies. They're going to go under 7 wins this year, and when they do, he is out of here. Well, not out of here, but next year, that's when you got to make it or break it. Because Auburn, one thing about Auburn, they don't have no patience. Their athletic directorship, their fans are generally a lot younger than Bama fans. Bama's more older, but Auburn fans are younger. They're a lot more impatient than we are, way more impatient. They want to compete with Alabama. They don't want to compete with them. They want to beat them, right? They want to be the one to kind of mock them for 365 days a year, but they also want to get to this point where they can start competing for championships, because Auburn has talent every single year. I can venture to say they have top 15 talent every single year, right? They know their recruiting hotspot areas. They know exactly what the talent they can get, right? They go to Georgia, they recruit Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi is a very, very hotbed for them to try to get. And then, of course, they recruit in-state, right? It's not easy competing against them, when it comes to the in-state talent. So, listen, Auburn's got the talent. Like I said, they lost some players to the NFL draft. We understand that, but they got talent there. But you're talking about an offense that needs to get better, because that was one of the worst offenses in the country. Hugh Freeze is an offensive guy. He's a quarterback guru. It seems like Peyton Thorne is most likely going to be the starting quarterback for this team. That's got to get better. They need to get better, and they got to find a way to compete, because let me tell you something, man. Harsin, he didn't get a fair shake. Harsin didn't get the opportunity that I think a lot of people should have gotten. Like he was out of there in 2 years. Well, you need to do this exact same thing with Hugh Freeze, because if he doesn't compete, this time you're going to go on the road to Alabama. You are, and not to mention that you are in an era where it should be a lot easier for an SEC team to get into the playoff. There should be at least 4 to 5 teams competing for a playoff spot. But the fact of the matter is that if Auburn, if you look at their schedule, it is a tough schedule for them. But if they can't get in there, screw the 7 wins. If you can't even come close to making that massive jump, that massive improvement to competing with Alabama, and not only competing with them, you got to beat them. You have to beat Bama, right? For the most part, we all know, unlike Michigan, Ohio State, where it's been one-sided for the most part. It's either been a blowout, double-digit victory, or again, they only had two close games throughout that span. But our games are very competitive. Our games produce instant classics, right? When you look at so they don't care about losing close. They care about getting the W. They care about beating Alabama. They don't want Alabama to brag and talk about the victory and what was that? Do that little karate, do the karate crane that we've been doing to them, going to their practices when they were competing in the Birmingham Bowl, right? Shout out to Javon Cohen. But yeah, this is it for him. If he can't figure out a way to compete, and not only compete, but try to at least beat Alabama this year, he will be on the hot seat. They are impatient, and they're going to try to look for a coach that can obviously get them there. And Hugh Freeze is a person that's been extremely controversial, and so we'll see what kind of happens to him. But yeah, he'll be on the hot seat after this year for sure.
Crazy that they fired a coach for, lack of better words, crimes of moral turpitude in Harsin, and then hired a guy that has had multiple instances of actually doing those things.
Yep. They should just go away. They're like a parasite, just attack you right in your back crawl. You'll experience that, Chris.
So I want to do this very Stephen A. like the guy that was just talking. Okay, look, let's all be honest. Okay, he's a Bills fan, Josh Allen fan. Guy doesn't know football. Obviously, he's talking about a coach that's in his second.
And Mike McDaniel should be on the hot seat.
Get it? Talking about 40, we all know that they're coming for you guys. We'll see that when we get there. Okay, but enough of that. All right. Let's talk about realistic and let's talk about unrealistic. So realistically, in my opinion, I say Dave Aranda in the Big 12 is on the high.
That's a great one.
It is. Yep. It is very disheartening to say that because you know what they were a couple of years ago, but now you kind of have to say, did he do that with Matt Rule's players? Right. So great guy. I think he would be a great DC anywhere he goes. If he does go and be a DC, hey, co-DC at OU, wherever you want to, I don't know. But he's a great football mind. He's a great guy that you want inside of your facility, right? Unrealistic, I would say, guys, I'm Brian Kelly. I think that he has maybe 1 or 2 years. Winning a Heisman is not enough, baby. Going 9-3, 9-4, things like that. That's not enough at LSU. At some point, they're going to get tired of being mediocre. We saw it. They've had great coaches there. Les Miles was great. He went out bad for all types of reasons, but when he was there, it wasn't cutting the mustard. And, at some point, I think some schools have to realize, and LSU is not necessarily in that category, but some schools have to realize it's fine having Bo Pelini at your school. Make sure that you are going to at least still be in a conversation of 9 to 10 wins per season instead of just letting go of a coach. I'm just saying, sometimes it's good. Nebraska, we're all looking at you right now. Okay. But those would be my 2 right there. I would say Dave Aranda for sure. And it's very hard to say that. It definitely, and, even though Baylor beat us and all the rest of that stuff, he went on won a Big 12 championship, but still you like Dave Aranda. You have to root for him. But man, I would say I think Brian Kelly, I think he's 2 years away. I don't think he gets the luxury of staying there forever at LSU like he did at Notre Dame. I just don't.
That Bo Pelini line was savage.
Ooh.
That was great.
That was good.
Brinsky, who's on the hot seat, my man?
He just took my Dave Aranda one.
Oh,
and I So thanks for that. But it's all good, man. They beat y'all, so it's all good. But it's really Dave Aranda, man. Just the way he came in. You could say it was Matt Rule's team, but when he came in, it was 2-7. When they came back in 12-2, got a win in the Sugar Bowl against Ole Miss in a classic Big 12 championship game that literally came down to the 1 yard line. That was an awesome game. I remember that game, one of my favorite championship games. But you come back the next 2 years, 6-7 and 3-9, and you lose in a almost forced bowl, whatever that is. We might well call it the Beef It Up Bowl. I don't know, man. He's definitely on the hot seat. I did like that Brian Kelly one, but I'm not too sure. I think he's gonna really have a down year this year. It's just too many weapons that walked out that door, but I don't think he's on the hot seat. But I did like Jan's Auburn take, because Auburn really believes that they're gonna go. The friends that I have that are big time Auburn fans, they feel disrespected that Georgia scheduled them for their homecoming, and they really believe that they're about to go in there and upset Georgia. If you find anybody that believes that, bet them and bet the house, because they're gonna run them out the building. And if Peyton throwing the ball, trust me, in that environment, and I pray to God it's a night game. Oh my goodness, Malachi Starks is gonna eat that night. He's gonna eat that night. So yeah, those are my guys, and of course Billy Napier is just automatic.
Look, the Napier thing is very interesting. If I may, real quick before we all jump up off of here, reason why I say that's interesting, because I'm just going to throw some numbers at you guys, because men lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie. After 2024, his buyout is $25,670,000. After 25, $19,380,000. After 26, $13 million. $13 million, $13 million and $5,000, right? After 27, that's still $6,545,000. When they signed him to the 7-year contract, that was probably the dumbest thing that they could have done. Like I said, Mel Tucker, however you want to spend that situation, it is what it is. But Mel Tucker was the catalyst, and he was the first out of all these new coaches to get these 10-year deals. Maybe Jimbo was first. Somebody fact check me on that. But he was the coach that, you were like, wait a minute, they're just handing out 10-year deals. You start seeing other key people get 10-year deals. Texas, all eyes are on Texas because of that simple fact. You just gave him a deal. I don't know. I'm calling it the Jimbo curse contract, simply because 10 years is a long time to lock in with a coach. I like short-term deals simply because it gives everybody a lot more leeway if we have to end the relationship. But being on the hot seat, I don't know if they want to pay him or keep him like that. But if they think they have the money, so be it. Go for it, Florida. But that's a lot of money to shell out, especially when you owe him damn near you owe him 25 after this year, 19 after the next, and 13 million after the third year. That's a lot of money. I don't know if he sees the exit just yet. Even the $6 million, that's still a lot for a lot of schools.
See, I don't think Napier actually, hot seat. I don't really think I see him there. And I get where you're coming out with that from this contract standpoint. I, on the other hand, I go the opposite way. I like the length. And the reason is if you can get a coach in the right position, right? Mm-hmm. Especially with Florida. Florida's had so much, it seems, turnover. They've been trying to find Spurrier again. You know what I mean? And it's been rough. But I think with Napier, I do have to give him credit, even with all this negative publicity, even with the roster he inherited and the turnover. His recruiting right now is on point. It's been pretty impressive for what he, even with his garbage record. It
breaks your heart. It breaks your heart to see that, because everybody coming out of Louisiana, I forgot which one it was.
Or
was it Louisiana? I thought it was Lafayette.
Louisiana, Lafayette.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah. Coming out of there, man, like you saw him do more with less.
I know.
And so coming to Florida, you thought, look, it's not necessarily a Ferrari right now. It is that type of program when everything is running efficiently. But I mean, to see what's happened to him, and I mean, I think some people, the reason why a lot of people have him on the hot seat is simply because you had the number 4 pick on campus, and you squandered that away, right?
True.
So I just don't know. But you know, Ty and I was telling one of my coworkers today about our conversation. Ty, Cristobal and Napier should be sending love letters. They should be sending thank you notes to Venables all day, every day, because for all the bad that happened to him, all the good that he's done, everything that he does overshadows anything that they do. And they've made some really, really bonehead decisions on national television. But it seems like Venables gets more hate than those two. Granted, I think we all see the trajectory of each of those programs, right?
100%.
And I'm an OU fan, yeah.
Let me get to RJ real fast. RJ, my guy, happy to see you in here. I was actually just thinking about you today. Shoot me a text, man. We need to get you on the show again. Always great insight. Don't know what you're doing Friday morning, but we run it Friday morning, 9 a.m. Would love to have you on that Friday morning. Shoot me a text. Shoot me something on Twitter. Would love to have you on here. I'll say this, guys. Last thing before we hop out of here, because we are going on 2 hours.
Woo.
Another thing, this is a great comment right here. A bunch of guys listing that are on the hot seat. Love all of those. Chris, I love your point about Venables right there at the end, because you know me, I've said it for a while. Everybody was disappointed in Brent Venables for, what was it, not last season, but the season before last.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, he was left an abhorrent defense. They didn't even know how to spell the word defense, and that wasn't Oklahoma's fault. But Lincoln Riley doesn't believe in defense. Alex Grinch can't coach his way out of a kindergarten. Then you have the fact that they had to do a complete philosophy switch from that to a defensive philosophy. He's recruited well. He's done well. He has them on the right track. I was always surprised whenever people were more down on Venables, who, by the way, is a first-time head coach. And nobody's talking about Mario Cristobal, who this is not his first rodeo. I've always said Cristobal needs to send Venables. I don't know whether he likes flowers. I don't know whether he likes edible arrangements. They need to figure it out, and he needs to send it to him once a month, every month, because it's criminal. People in the national media were talking about, oh, Venables this, Venables. It should have been Cristobal this, Cristobal that. And I like Cristobal. But a fact is a fact, and I'm not going to shy away from that. Here's the last thing I'll say. A name that didn't get brought up, and I don't necessarily know that I don't believe he's on the hot seat. Let me just say that. I don't believe Lincoln's on the hot seat. But, gentlemen, USC did something very interesting. They brought in Matt Entz. He is now the assistant head coach for defense, and he's the linebackers coach. He's North Dakota State's old coach.
Yep.
If they go to the Big Ten and they finish number 5, when is it going to get better? I love Juju Lewis. I think Juju Lewis is going to be phenomenal. Juju Lewis reclassified. Unless he is like spectacular, he'll need a year to sit, right, and learn and just develop. And I think that will be best for Juju. Now, listen, I do think that he is an unbelievably talented prospect. He reclassified as still a top 20 player in the nation. If he comes in there day dot and is the guy, I'm going to show you another top 10 NFL draft pick that Lincoln will have had his hand in, right? Like, that's just calling a spade a spade. But if they don't figure this out, and let's be honest, I think Oregon is ahead of them right now. I think Ohio State, there's no question, is ahead of them right now. What if USC finishes 5th? What's the pitch? Because they just hired a spectacular staff. Eric Henderson, co-defensive coordinator, run game coordinator, and defensive line coach. That's a great hire. Coach Henney, that's an amazing hire. Zach Hansen, great hire. Lynn, the defensive coordinator, great hire. They have Doug Belk, great hire. Like, they have got all of these great hires on the defensive side. What if they finish 5th?
You know what, Ty? You know what's crazy is who the AD is, right? At USC, it's Jen Cohen. You know who hired Kalen DeBoer? FCF. Jen Cohen. Matt Entz is there, everybody. If Lincoln screws up, guess who your next head coach is going to be?
Matt Entz.
Matt Entz. There's a reason why they're bringing him in. And Jen, I'm going to be honest with you. She identifies talent. She is a badass when it comes to finding the right coaches. That's one hell of an AD. Like, mad props to her. So I think she's already projecting and kind of seeing, giving him that time, giving him that chance. But I think she's already looking for it, man. I think that's why they bring in Matt Entz. I think that it makes all the sense in the world. And Matt, there's a new trend. Everybody, they're not looking for all these assistant coaches in NCAA in the Division I necessarily anymore. They're looking for guys who are successful with talent at lower levels or not as much talent, right? That they have to be creative. If you're creative, then you can work with talent. You can work with things around you. But if you don't know how to be creative, you don't know how to be innovative because you're stuck in similar ways. I mean, look at, like, this is why I think BV, Brent Venables is going to be so successful at Oklahoma. I don't even know how people even freaking complain about him, number one, or even give him any shit whatsoever. Like, look what he did. Look what he does with his offensive coordinator. Look what he did with his defensive coordinator. Just, Lebby loses. Who's he bring in? Seth Luttrell. Seth, you look at Seth's background. That offense is going to look good. Like, it's going to be very impressive. Seth is a QB guy, right? In the end of the day, he's a QB guy. But look at who he's under. He's under Mike Leach. Okay, that's where he comes from. He's in Arizona. He's in Indiana. Right. And then he shoots over to North Carolina the same time that we all brag about it. The same time Cap is there. Same time Gillespie's there from Alabama. I mean, dude, Venables is doing a very similar thing. We see Coach Katie with Kalen DeBoer doing it too. They're really looking at these aspects of coaches beyond just your OC and your DC, but like all these different aspects that fit into a process, a system that you want to run that's going to be successful, right? That will win. Okay. And then you look at USC and Jen Cohen's doing it with setting up the coaching aspect. I got my replacement if shit goes wrong.
Gentlemen, it has been 2 hours. And that's why I wanted to bring up Lincoln, is because they hired Matt Entz. And whenever they did that, I was like, simultaneously great move, because to get him as a linebacker coach, guys, wow, that's a slam dunk hire. Like, let's just call it that's a slam dunk hire. But the second they did that, guys, I sat back in my chair, right, with my cigar, and I was like, I think there's a double play here that people aren't talking about. And ever since the seed was planted, they inceptioned me, and now, Hey, I'll shoot you a text, RJ. I'll shoot you a text right after this. That way you don't have to worry about any of that. But gentlemen, let's go around the table. Let everybody know where they can find your great content. And let's just go straight down the line from Jake, Brensky, Jance, and finally Chris, because Chris, you're an Auburn supporter.
Hey, that's all good. Is that Chris in the chat? Is that Chris from the chat?
No. Well, no. Well, actually, I know I wouldn't put it past him.
Oh, no. But no, I love it, man. Chris, it's nice to meet you too. You get awesome stuff. Like, it's a pleasure to be in here with you guys all. I know, PG earlier, Jason, Coop, obviously Jay. I mean, we had a lot of different people popping in, and then of course Brensky, Chris, Ty, and Jance. Man, it's always a pleasure. But you can find me right now. I'm just on Twitter. Gonna get Instagram up again soon. But all capital Coach _J Mer, JMERR. And then I'm gonna be starting my own YouTube here soon. So we got more platforms to jump on, because in the end of the day, I'm all about utilizing different guys and jumping on and working together to build fun stuff to talk about college football. Because it's fun when you can bring people from all different fan bases, whether it's, the West, the East, the South, the North, and really talk ball. I mean, I love it. And playing too, being able to kind of give that perspective has been a lot of fun.
Is he in the chat?
Who? The other Chris?
Is Jake in the chat?
No,
Our
I'm
chat,
not in
chat.
there. No.
Oh,
Tom, I'm
wait.
in the group chat.
No,
I thought
I'm
I
not.
put him in there. Oh, well, no, that's because he just made a Twitter.
Oh,
Yeah, man. Yeah,
He just
add
made his
me,
Twitter.
please.
he's
Yeah.
a Bama
Yeah.
fan as well.
Man, so I played at UW, University of
Oh.
Washington, and then yeah, I'm a
Sure,
Bama
Chris,
fan.
yes, Chris. We're all Bama fans in here.
Nah, don't worry. But in the end of the day, you know, I have a unique background.
I got you, Moon Rocka. I got you.
So, but yeah, so but I'm, you know, for me the biggest thing is in the end of the day is I love the game and love what it brings and love bringing the people together. That's what it's all about. Jake, tighten up. Oh, okay. All right, Moon. All right. No, but yeah, so it's good times, man. I appreciate all you guys and yeah, just hit me up on Twitter. So
Brinsky, my man.
Well, I'm Brinsky Sharp of the Sharpshooters Podcast. Catch us every Wednesday. May go live tomorrow for NBA Finals preview. I said Celtics in 6. If Kyrie get one, I wouldn't be mad at all. That's my guy. So, but I'm still going Celtics in 6. Make sure y'all subscribe to the podcast. Still, no, we're 12 subs away from 500. So
we got 86 in here. Go hop over to where is that one more time, Brinsky?
The Sharpshooters Podcast. And I will put it in the chat for y'all to go to.
Please do. We got 12 subs away. We can do that easily. Easily. There it is.
Come here. But appreciate y'all. Horns down as always. OU sucks. Don't tell Jason and Chris. Oh, Chris right there. But roll tide.
Chance.
Well, before I get into the usual instances, I just want to make a quick shout out to Real Madrid, Ala Madrid, for winning the Champions League. Of course, we had to do it once again, and then of course we got Kylian and Mbappe a little bit earlier, man. So I mean,
poetic.
Yeah, exactly. So of course we're going to continue to do the things that we do, guys. This is the year of Jants. My Buffalo Bills. We're taking home the Super Bowl. We're going to the Super Bowl. We're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Of course, Alabama, of course, we're going to be winning the national championship. My Sabres will finally get back to the playoffs because we got the GOAT himself, Lindy Ruff. Everything's coming right all together, man. Everything's coming all together. The only thing that's going to disappoint me is the U.S. is going to lose in the Copa America. That's the only thing that's going to disappoint because they suck in soccer. But anything else, you can find me on Twitter, Jant716. You can find me on YouTube, Jant Sports. Go Bills, man. We're taking it home.
All right, people. I'm glad that we're done with that diatribe.
Yeah.
Anyways, you guys can find me Horns Down Podcast on YouTube. Okay, at Chris with a _K on Twitter as well. I ain't got much to say, people. All I gotta say is this: Auburn by 40. Y'all see the logo right there. That's what we're doing. Look at that helmet.
You've been saying Auburn by 40 for the last kind of 3 years now. I mean, I want to win.
Look, I gotta say it. It's the only way I can disrespect Ty. Ty won't let me disrespect him any type of way.
It happens every time.
Alabama by 40. You heard me right here.
Alabama by 40. I love it.
That's right.
That's how we're going to end it with Christmas speaking at the very end. Alabama by 40.
Just cut that clip. The short.
Alabama.
He leaves.
All right, gentlemen, we will be back on another live, right? We will be back on here live Friday morning, 9:30 a.m. You don't want to miss that. We're going to try and get RJ in here. We're going to have Jake, if he can make it in here. Coach Sean was busy with family this evening. Shout out to Coach Sean. Hopefully he'll be in here. Jance, if you're available, love to have you in here as well. You already know you've been my partner in crime on this streaming thing for 3 years now, and that's not going to end anytime soon. But until next time, thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody in the chat. You make the show what it is. Two most important things in life: your health and time. And you are here this evening with us, giving us your time. I certainly hope you all have your health. And until next time, allow me to introduce to you the member of the panel who's always quiet, but man, did they make their presence known at the end. That's the Spinning Wheel of Doom. Shout out to Ebony in the chat. Happy to see you in here. Happy that Noah is on campus. Hope that he is loving it. and I can't wait to hear about all of his adventures, and hopefully you are doing well. Until next time, may I introduce you to the spinning wheel of doom.
Roll
And it
Tide.
spins.